Good morning, everyone. Welcome to this early morning 6 a.m. free live class on Unacademy UPSC Articulate YouTube channel. So, this is Nisha Nujumudeen, your educator at Unacademy, an expert in Indian economy, current affairs, and MCQs. So, here I am with another important series on this regular early morning 6 a.m. 6 a.m. class, wherein we'll be discussing the current topics in news for UPSC Prelims 2022. So not only for the prelims examination, even for the mains examination and also for the interview perspective, these topics of discussion will definitely enrich your knowledge and do the needful. So today, if you see, we have an amazing topic from the category economy. So this is a topic which all of you know, a topic that has been there for so many years. But then, kabhi kabhi, the harsh reality of this topic has to be understood. So the topic is GST, Goods and Service Tax. Do you think it is an unfinished agenda or not? So GST, is it an unfinished agenda or not? So this is the topic that we're going to discuss today, both the pros and cons and the background of this particular topic, and since its implementation in our country, India, how it has been taken forward till today, what has been the government doing. So multiple things like that. So this is what we are going to discuss in today's class. Clear? Perfect. So that's early morning to all of you. People are just waking up from their beds, I believe. So good to see all. So yes, before that, as you all know, guys, I'm one of Unacademy's top plus educator, handling a lot of sessions wherein NCERT batch courses, you have comprehensive economy classes, MCQ courses, current affairs courses, etc., etc. What you do is you can follow me via the Unacademy profile. Okay, this is my Unacademy profile. The link of that is pinned up in the chat box. Can you all see? So this profile will appear. You can click the follow button to get all the updates. And now, the regular schedule of my classes. When the clock strikes 6 a.m. in the morning, we have this current topics in news for UPSC CSE examination topics. And now, at the same time, in the evening, when the clock strikes 6 p.m., okay, there in the Unacademy platform, okay, you have to download the app, and in that platform, you will be having a free special live classes going on UPSC level MCQs for Prelims 2022 with a 360-degree coverage. So every Monday to Saturday, you have the series. So make the best out of it. Clear? So be it free class or plus class. Plus means the paid classes to have, or let's say to experience more of quality content and mentoring and other perspectives. Use the code Nisha IAS Live. You can get a load of discounts and offers with regard to the UPSC CSE subscriptions called as plus or paid platform. Be it the normal paid or plus subscription or the iconic or the premium one. If you want your names to be in the top list of UPSC CSE the coming year, like how these people could make it up that you can see in the slide, then the one-stop solution is equal to Unacademy, guys. No doubt in that. So now all what you have to do is either 1 year, 2 year, 3 year general studies plus optional subscriptions called as combo subscription. You can go for that. You can even avail loan to be a part of all this 2022 and 2023 batches, the effective batches by the top educators across the country, India, including myself. And you can even go for loan, guys. So then without interest, or let's say without EMI, you are getting to study. So the so-called, UPSC CSE with much of ease. So don't let finances stop you from achieving your dream. So go ahead, guys. There also the same code, Nisha IAS Life, can be used. It is not only for discount. At the same time, for everybody, there should be a personal mentor. You will be having other teachers' classes available as well. But then mentoring is something which will be done by somebody whom you feel, come on, I should come under this particular teacher's mentoring. And that's what I'll be doing when you use the code Nisha IAS Life. Clear? So there are a couple of benefits, or let's say multiple benefits associated with this particular code. So be it free or plus, come and attend the live classes to become an IAS officer to achieve your dream with me, and that is Nisha IAS Life. Just keep this in mind. Clear? Perfect. So yes, Vivek, good morning. Hi, Tejas. Where are the others? People are slowly waking up, I believe. Anyways, so it's Monday morning, hai na? Thoda sa, they'll be like that. So now, before starting the class, my young officers, it's always very important to know the platforms where you can follow me. So Nisha Nujumudeen for UPSC is the official Telegram channel of mine where you can follow me for all the updates of Unacademy, free class, plus class, and YouTube classes. Okay? So now, let's begin a Monday morning with an amazing motivational quote of the day. And here we go. This is your Monday morning reminder that you are powerful beyond measure, that you're capable of pretty much anything you are willing to work for, and that you could change your life today. So understand one thing, there is nothing that can shake you or break you unless and until the three-letter word called as YOU is so strong within yourself, because that is something which makes you, which creates you, and which can even shake or break you. So the choice is yours, whether to create your empire or to get broken. And for that, you got to really have the so-called self-confidence within yourself that this too shall pass. And yes, you will be able to attain whatever you want through the hurdles or struggles that you are, fighting for today. So have a great Monday morning. Have a blessed week ahead. So let's start an amazing series of the day by discussing the most important viral topic out there. What is that? The goods and service tax. Goods and service tax, whether it is an unfinished agenda. Hannah. So yes, here we go, my young officers. A quick look into this particular topic of discussions. Are you all ready? Let me see how many thumbs ups I'm going to get. Quick. Yes, how many thumbs ups? No thumbs up, sir. Don't tell me that. Brilliant. Yes, that's a great thing. Yes, Ritik. Hi, Surender. Yes, Kalyan. Good morning to all of you. Yes, Tejas. Perfect. So here we go, my young officers. From the subject area economy, as I was telling you, why are we studying this particular topic? Is since 2015 or let's say 2016, we are having the so-called GST, right? But then now we are in 2022 and it's been so many years. So GST, or let's say goods and service tax, was implemented, saying that it could actually do a great revolution in the field of taxation system, especially indirect taxes, to reduce corruption, to bring a lot of people under the tax net and sub kuch like that. But then we know what is happening over the years. So in this particular lecture, you have to express your viewpoint as to what is being said is true or not. Do you really think GST, that is goods and service tax, as far as the country India is concerned, is it an unfinished agenda? So what you can do to improve it, or if it is an okay perspective, or if you feel that it has been going smoothly, then there is no need to even make further changes. Just that you keep updating or improving the existing policies put across with that. So the choice is yours. So from multiple dimensions, we're going to discuss the same topic. So mostly a critical evaluation of the goods and service tax exclusively in the Indian context will be discussed in today's session. Clear? Where you will have the pros, the cons, the challenges, the background of the topic since day one it is implemented, and also the way forward and effective suggestions. Clear? So did you all like the topic, all of you? An unfinished agenda, something which all of us want to know. So now before going to the current affairs of this particular topic, don't you think so? It's very important for us to have a quick understanding of what exactly is GST, goods and service tax. What are the other perspectives based on that particular topic as a whole? So let's quickly have a look into what is GST, my young officers. As we all know, the so-called indirect taxes which you had before. So the Indian taxation system is divided into two categories, right? You have something called as direct tax and indirect tax. And now direct tax is a tax where the incidence and the burden is borne by the same individual when they pay the taxes. Mostly the salaried employees. At the time of getting their salary, directly a cut has been done in their salary itself. So the ones who are liable to pay direct taxes, they feel the pinch of paying the prices, or let's say they feel the pinch of paying the taxes and the burden directly. Whereas indirect tax, it is inclusive in the price of the commodities. Let's say, for example, you go to the market and you're buying a product. Let's say you're buying this, mouse or pen or whatever. The real cost could be 10 rupees. But then, inclusive of taxation, the profit, everything, it comes up to 15 rupees. But you never know that you're paying the tax of the commodity because you see the MRP, the maximum retail price of the product. So inside that, or let's say inclusive of that particular price, only the taxation will be there. So you don't feel the pinch of paying higher prices, or let's say the taxation while you purchase a commodity. And the next important thing is whether you're rich or poor, whatever. If you want to go and purchase one particular commodity, you got to pay the tax. There is no escape out of it. So the income levels, or let's say the capability of the person to pay, all these things are not determined in the context of indirect taxes. And there are multiple indirect taxes, we all know. Sales tax, excess duty, VAT, that, this, sub kuch like that, which is causing a huge headache or burden. Due to which the most popular form of taxation called as indirect tax and the most hidden kind of tax called as indirect tax needed a revolution. And that is how, guys, officially the government of India In the year 2015-16, they said, let's go for the implementation of goods and service tax, wherein the entire indirect tax regime will be subsumed under one single umbrella called as goods and service tax to avoid the excess of corruptions or excess of, burdening of the consumers or the others with regard to this payment of indirect taxes. Clear? So when GST was introduced, it was seen as a blessing. Don't you think so? But when it is implemented, did we really get the benefits that we're supposed to get like the other countries? See, GST is not a new thing, guys. Even the other countries have been adopting it since a long time. And it has been a success in so many countries also. Let me tell you that. But when you talk about the Indian context or our country, India, do you really think that has been so fruitful that we are in a question mark today? Is it an unfinished agenda? We have come to question mark like that. So these kind of things is what we're going to discuss today. Clear? So for that, you should know what is GST and the relevant static portion pertaining to current affairs in a short, quick and sweet manner. Okay, let's have a quick look into it. Yes, Varsha, good morning. So now what is GST basically? Goods and service tax. So this can be called as a destination based tax or a consumption based tax. Why? Because GST is being charged at the place of consumption. I may produce a commodity in Kerala, but that particular commodity is being sold in Tamil Nadu or Maharashtra or Delhi or wherever. So now the place where it is being sold, the destination where it has been consumed, there only GST is implemented, but not in the place where it has been produced. You got the point? That is why it is said that your goods and service tax is a destination based tax or a consumption tax. So now this is an innovation package, this GST today, and we call this GST as a ONOT. That is one nation system. I repeat, one nation, one tax system, guys. That's what the GST is all about. So since 15-16, the discussions were going on, but officially in the year 2017, the so-called goods and service tax was adopted in our country, India, with a lot of modifications. So then this so-called concept will fit into the Indian context, because if you see the Brazil, Canada, all these countries had GST and they were kind of working pretty well. But for our country, India, taking into consideration our political scenario, economic scenario, and other perspective, we had to do some modifications. You got the point? So that's how it was adopted. And thus, as I told you, it is a destination or a consumption-based tax. Clear? Yes, Manish, good morning. So now, this GST, don't you think so, guys? It provides for the seamless input tax credit with something called as CGST and SGST. Now, this goods and service tax is being divided into two types. One is called as CGST. What is that? Central goods and service tax, which the central government will be taking the share. Okay. And next is SGST. So CGST is central goods and service tax and your CGST state goods and service tax. Take care. So thus, this so-called GST, it is providing a lot of seamless input tax credit with all the CGST imposed by the center and SGST levied by the state. And if you see the context of UTs, Union Territories, they also have a GST. What is it called as? Union Territory ka GST, guys. Normally we say that the UTs are free of taxation. But then if you see as far as GST is concerned, yes, the UTs do have something called as Union Territory ka GST. And now, there is another important point which you should understand with regard to GST is that nothing but integrated, a combination of both the state and center together. So IGST, integrated goods and service tax, and that is levied on all the interstate supplies including imports, guys. For example, when you want to do a transaction or let's say trade within your country, India, between Kerala and Tamil Nadu, between Andhra and Maharashtra. So now interstate, right, between state, what they'll do is, in such kind of scenario, the concept called as IGST, integrated goods and service tax, will be levied, even in the context of imports also. Clear? Yes, Ram Kumar. What is it? Yes, Anuj Pandey, good morning. Yes, Varsha, ma'am, third point, please repeat. Which point you're telling? You mean destination-based and consumption-based tax. See, Varsha, as far as your GST is concerned, for example, you're producing a commodity in Maharashtra. Okay, now you're going to sell that in Tamil Nadu or Kerala, wherever. So now, at the point of sale, there only, let's say for example, Manish or Surendra or Ramkumar is coming and buying the commodity. They are the consumers. So now they are paying the price of the product, inclusive of taxation from there. So from the place of origin, you are not taxed. But at the place of consumption or the place of destination, you are being taxed. So that is called as GST. GST is applicable there. Let's say for example, you go to a hotel. The food may be produced, in one place. But then at the place of delivery or the place where it has been really consumed, a GST is being taxed. For example, you understand, through a hotel or restaurant or whatever it is. So now GST is a destination-based tax and a consumption-based tax. It is not charged at the point of origin, but rather at the point of sale or consumption. Did you understand? Is it very clear? Perfect. So now adding more important points to the so-called GST is that if you see, GST is not implemented on every single commodity, guys. We may feel that, come on, every single commodity has GST. But when GST was introduced in the year 2017 officially, except for human use alcohol and 5 designated petrol products, this GST was applicable to all goods and service. But as the time passed, don't you think so? This rule was changed? Yes. In every single thing, you can find GST involved today. But initially, when they were put forward, there were some exemptions. But today, that is not there. And thus, I can tell you that as far as the country India is concerned, this goods and service tax comparison, it is built on two pillars or two strong, pillars. What are they? One is revenue neutrality, and second is GST compensation for state. And both these topics are hit list topics by young officers, no doubt in that. Clear? And why do you think it is a hit list topic? Yes, Rishabh, good morning. What do you feel? Because very recently, guys, due to this COVID-19 pandemic, if you see in the last year's newspapers and all, GST compensation tax or GST compensation act was there in news, where there was a jagada or a conflict between the central government and the state government, right? So all these multiple stuff will be discussed in today's class. So thus revenue neutrality is basically to understand that the rich is becoming more and more rich. The poor is becoming more and more poor. So how to actually bifurcate that, or actually how to end such kind of gap, or let's say the divide. That's more important, because direct tax means the ones who are salaried, or let's say the ones who are having a job, formal sector job, they are paying it. Whereas indirect tax, whether you are in informal or the formal sector, whether you are rich or poor, if you want to purchase one particular commodity, that is inclusive of it. So here no sort of equality is coming, and people are charging indirect tax at the rate they want it, be it the sales tax, your excess duty, that, this, property tax, etc., etc. Now everything is coming under one single umbrella under GST, hai na? So thus, revenue neutrality is very important. And also, as far as the state governments are concerned, the central government had to convince the state governments that you got to go for this GST. And if at all they're not able to get the required revenue as per what is promised by the central government through GST within a period of 5 years from the date of implementation. So 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. Till last year it was the year. Even 22, now it is 22, guys. 2022. But still, there was a promise given by the center like that. But in the wake of COVID-19 pandemic, what happened? They were unable to, keep up their words, due to which a lot of jagadas were happening. And if you see, the GST Compensation Act is something where it is said that for a period of 5 years from the date of implementation of GST, the central government has promised the concerned state governments that if they are not able to earn an annual revenue of 4% 14% from GST, then the central governments will compensate. So the state governments will not suffer with regard to revenue perspective. But in March 2020 onward, this pandemic started, and we saw the entire world economy was shaken. And as far as the country India is concerned, come on, this pandemic has taken a huge toll, right? There was no revenue, there was no money supply, no investment, sab kuch, even the consumption, everything was decreasing to greater extent because the economy is more or less going into recession. What is recession? Slowing down of economic activities, right? But then the Atmanirbhar Bharat Abhin, the 20 lakh crore economic stimulus package has slowly brought us back to track. Okay. Now, in that particular scenario, the state government said, see, 5 years is not over. We are liable for GST compensation, act. But then, what did the central government say? No, we do not have much of income. We cannot do that. That led to a huge cold war, or let's say fatafat ka, jagadas, or let's say conflict between the central and state government, because they didn't keep up their word and promise. So do you think the real paradigm in which the goods and service tax is built up is following it? They were unable to achieve revenue neutrality. One thing. And now the COVID-19 pandemic is literally proving us that the GST compensation for state, were they given? No. And that has led to a lot of issues. That is why it is said that from the day one till today, do you think GST has done what is required? So don't you think so? An unfinished agenda is very well a title that is suiting the so-called hot topic of the day, that is GST. Yes or no? Yes, it is, because it is proving. That's why I'm telling you. Why I do the static portion for you is for you to know the real keywords in it. And now when you compare those keywords with the current scenario, more or less you can see the issues. You can sense out the real issue that is happening. Did you get it, guys? Yes, Soham and PK, good morning. Yes, Varsha, why policy paralysis? See, policy paralysis, like human paralysis, will happen. It's not the paralysis of the policy. The effective implementation is not happening. Implementation is there, execution is there. Effectiveness of that, to have a less of corruption that was brought in. But more of corruption has been brought in by the people because they're even more brainy. They know how to do and what to do, even in the online perspective, or let's say, the GST perspective, whatever it is. Okay. Yes, Anuj? Now, having understood this, we know that everything has a lighter and a darker side. This doesn't mean that, guys, GST was bad. There are so many benefits of GST also. Hannah, let's quickly have a look into what are the possible benefits since 2017 when GST was introduced. It was said that when GST was introduced in our country into officially in the year 2017 implemented, it hailed as a landmark reform in our country India's tax history, because it is said that when the entire indirect tax has been subsumed under one single umbrella called as GST, it becomes a one nation, one tax system. Okay, for the entire country. Be it whichever state also, they cannot charge the tax that they want. Let's say, for example, the state of Kerala cannot have 18% or let's say 20% of sales tax, and the state of Tamil Nadu with 12%. No, it cannot be the case. GST is same for every single state, taking into consideration the rules and regulations put under that. So that is why it is said that it was a huge reform in the India's indirect tax history or system. Clear? And they also expected that when GST has been implemented effectively, it will also improve what the tax GDP ratio, which means that goods gross domestic product. What is your tax to GDP ratio? Please make a look into it. Tax ka GDP ratio is nothing but the revenue that you get through indirect taxes. Are they contributing to the growth and development of our country, India? So now we need to the ratio of that revenue and then contributing them for the GDP through the expenditure activities. So that is called as tax GDP ratio. Clear? And this is a very, very important topic. You can just go through as well. If somebody asks you what is tax GDP ratio, it is very simple. Tax GDP ratio in a country, India, is nothing but it is it is the ratio of the tax revenue of a country compared to the country's gross domestic product. What is the GDP of your country? When you compare them with the tax revenue that you get, that's called as tax to GDP ratio. Clear? And why do you think this has been used by the government? Such kind of tax to GDP ratio is used by the government as a measure where they'll be able to control the, the country's economic resources. And this tax to GDP ratio, it has been calculated by dividing the tax revenue. You can just note it. Tax to GDP ratio. How are they calculated? They have been calculated by dividing the tax revenue that you get, divided by the GDP of a specific time period. That is the tax revenue of that particular time period divided by the gross domestic product. Clear? This is how you actually measure practically the tax GDP ratio. Now you tell me, is this tax to GDP ratio after the introduction of GST, have they really improved? Under the benefits of GST, this is coming. But do you really think it was expected to improve the tax to GDP ratio? Initially it was okay. But today, as the years passed, do you really think the tax to GDP ratio for a country has improved or decreased? Is it high or low or medium? Quickly give me the right answer. Is the tax to GDP ratio high, low, medium? Quick. Tejish is saying increase, okay? Are you really sure it is high? Use your brains. I'm asking about the current scenario. Or it is medium, or it is lower. So Varsha Arshav is saying it is low. Really? How pakka you people are? How strong in your answers? Okay, that's a kudos to all those who gave the right answer. Come on. Yes, Manish. Yes, the others who said it is lower. If you see currently, the tax to GDP ratio, believe me, it is lower because of the narrow tax base. If you see only 3% of a country's population, they will pay income tax with the context of direct tax, as I told you. And there is too much of tax evasion. Tax evasion means illegal way of escaping the payment of tax. If income is, let's say, 2 lakh or 3 lakh, you will show it as 50,000 in papers, showing that agriculture, the property custom, the loan, that, this, etc. Get a good auditor, fatafa do kallatham, things is done. And even in the context of indirect taxes, the revenue were not proper. You understand? So that is why it is said that your tax GDP ratio is quite low in a country. These are all the practical stuff. Clear? And now, another important benefit was end tax cascading. Cascading means double effect of taxation. So just avoid the double payment of taxation, guys. You have been charged 2 times for the same thing, which is causing a lot of burden for the people to a greater extent, right? So basically, to end that tax cascading or double effect of paying this tax again and again only for the same product only, GST was brought in. Next is to enhance efficiency, competitiveness, growth, and ensure lower prices. Let's say, for example, when you charge a high rate of sales tax and all, maybe the product's price is just 100 rupees, but then it ends up to 150, 180 and all. But in the context of GST, it will become only 120 or 130. That was a bifurcation. So based on the category of products, essential commodity, comfort commodity, luxury commodity, there is a bifurcation or there's a tax slab based on which one so percentage, 18% for this, for 5% for this, etc., etc. Clear? That is how GST was planned and implemented and executed. Yes, Rishabh, India is a home for tax evader. I will not say home for tax evader. Rather, we know it well. The people, citizens are the BAP of all this evasion and kallatrams and corruptions. It has become like that. But there are people who pay taxes. But then our income tax department is so smart and careful now. Fatafat, they catch out through rates and stuffs like that. That is why, again, the next related current affairs of this particular topic is faceless assessment. I repeat, faceless assessment. You remember I taught you something called as, taxing the honest taxpayers. Faceless assessment, seamless assessment, where the taxpayer and the authority will not have a connection at all to avoid all the kallatrams and striking deal and balance and all. You can actually use those current affairs here. They are very, very important topic. Clear? So multiple topics have been, put together, guys. Yes, Surendra, what is it? Clear, ma'am. Is tax GDP ratio fluctuating, sometime increase and sometime decrease? No, Surendra. It is now lower only. As for the current scenario, now it is lower because the narrow tax base. Simple as that. Clear? Yes, Rishabh. Yes, there was a committee. Yeah, there was a committee for it. The faceless tax, tax and assessments and all. Clear? And yes, Manish. Happy to see you for the 6 a.m. class. You wake up in the morning and came, my very old batch of student. But why you didn't come for the not coming for the 6 p.m. class? That is a hit list series that happens in the free special life class. Not seeing you there. Try to attend. It's back with full josh and energy. Anyways, and by the way, to all the others in the class, my YouTubers, my YouTube children, are you really enjoying my young officers, the 6 p.m. class? Because in the Unacademy app, because you have the option of polling. You have the interface itself is different. The way that class has been taken with the polling options, with other kallatrams, with all the emojis, with the different options of raising a hand feature. Hannah, are you really enjoying the free special life class? So keep coming for more and more classes. So today I told you that there will be a carnival, but today you will not be having a carnival. Probably we will have it tomorrow, guys. I'll let you know because my throat is still not that proper to go for a continuous stuff. Because after this I have to sit for another 4-5 hours continuous. But 6 p.m. we'll have. Whatever 6 p.m. class is there. Take care, that is there. Yes, Manish, I was not aware about that, ma'am. Now I want to try to reach there also. It is happening. I'm putting in my Telegram. I'm putting in your Telegram and every other groups. It has been circulated. And inform the whole batch of students. The entire your batch is there. Now inform every single people to do come and attend. It has been started. The same top 1000 MCQ series it is. Okay. The only thing I've changed the name to UPSC level MCQs 360-degree coverage. That's it. Hannah. Perfect. Yes, Varsha. Full of energy. Kya baat hai? Yes, it should be. Start your day or have a fresh start with a lot of energy, vibe and enthusiasm that nothing can shake you or break you. That should be the motto or agenda. Anyways, having understood, yes, thank you, Soham, having understood the benefits of GST. Okay. It's very important for you to have a quick look into the other perspective as well. Now, do you really think, guys, life gets simpler through GST? Yes or no? Varsha, it is a special class, free class only. Download the app, use the code Nisha IAS Live, come for that when it is 6 p.m. Simple as that. Even if you don't get notification, 6 p.m. is Mara class and Unacademy free platform, no doubt. The code is Nisha IAS Live, that's it. Rishabh and all came like that only. From my YouTube only, they came to my, free classes. And now they're enjoying it. Anyways, so now, to talk about the GST, guys. Okay, the benefits. Let's quickly have a look into this picture as well. Okay, it's very interesting. I've just taken a cartoonic version out here. Point number 1 tells, can you see this? I'll highlight for you. Hold on. life becomes simpler. Really? Because see, the 17 indirect taxes that has been replaced by the so-called one nation, one tax system called as GST. And the compliance cost will fall. Second is, don't you think so? The government will get a revenue boost? That is true, guys, because when people, many people will come under the tax purview, now the revenue flow will be there. The chances of escaping and evading of payment of taxation, like how that has been happening in the direct taxes, can reduce. Clear? Because it will encourage suppliers to pay taxes because input tax credit is there. And the state and the central both together will have a dual oversight and they will get their shares accordingly. And the numbers of tax exempt goods will also decline. And next is a common market. A common platform, that is true. Next is logistics, inventory cost, etc. will start decreasing. The cost becomes quite less. Take care. That is, if you have some checks at state borders, slow movement of trucks and all, you can normally they will have a check on all those stuff, and you will be able to avoid the corruptions to greater extent. And at the same time, the investments will also increase. Clear? Because many capital goods, guys, the factor called input tax credit is not available. Now, since input tax credit falls under the purview or the category of goods and service tax, what is meaning of that? A 12 to 14% drop in the cost of capital goods, and a lot of investments can happen because investments will give rise to more of employment opportunities. It will lead to the living standard of the people, the surroundings, sab kuch will increase. Clear? And then the so-called Make in India policy. That's another topic to discuss. Whether Make in India has been a success or a failure, guys. Even they are saying that when GST is introduced, Make in India manufacturing will get a more competitive because GST will address the issues of double taxation or cascading taxation. Where interstate tax and all, there will be a kind of norms to be followed. 2 to 3 times will not be taxed, and it will not make the commodity or the product so costlier. You'll be able to maintain them. Clear? Then they say that less developed states get a lift. Yeah, that is true because it's more or less a common thing now. So everybody is going to be taxed in the same way. So there is a objective like that also. Then manufactured goods should become cheaper because this GST is not, people are not going to be taxed 2 to 3 times. Only one rate are going to be taxed under the CGST or the SGST, called as central or state goods and service tax. So now the logistics cost will less and will be lower, and the tax cost will also get lower, and the GDP will be lifted up. It will increase, they are saying. That's another estimation done by them. And also freeing up online. That is, everything is going to be online. So now transparency, systematic way of analyzing, and the corruption level, the collectors will reduce to greater extent. Clear? Because manual is different, digital record of all these things. You cannot easily do collateral like how you do manually. You got the point? So these are the so-called benefits of what? The GST. Did you understand? So now, having understood all this, guys, these are so many benefits of GST. But still, my question is, do you really think we have been able to attain success in all the above set points? Around 10 points I've told you. Did we really achieve success? That's the next topic of discussion. Now, here we go. The same thing what I've told. You can just have a look into it. The benefits of GST as a whole. Improved compliance, GDP, common market, use of resource, fewer tax, etc., etc. Broadening the tax base, mitigation, overcoming the issue of cascading or double taxation, etc., etc. Clear? So people are saying no. Rishabh is saying but on the way. Yeah, it can be on the way, Rishabh. But then as far as GST is concerned, on the way is also a big question mark. I'll tell you why. But I'm telling you the benefits for you to know. If you know these benefits, you'll start comparing. Did we really achieve this? Did we really get this? Or are we in the right track? So that is why the so-called benefits has been showcased to you people. This is the critical evaluation of the goods and service tax implementation of country India since day one till today. Since 2017 to 2022 till today, you can keep it. Take care. Now, fiscal federalism under the so-called GST. Do you think that is actually a benefit? Yes. It is said that this GST, when it has been introduced, okay, it was projected as a watershed in our country, India's fiscal federalism. Fiscal federalism is what? Center, state, local bodies will come together. India has been promoting the concept of federalism. Don't you think so? Yes. Where the central government, state government, they all get a clarity and a share in the so-called GST perspective. And if you see, the states have forgone a substantial part of their own tax revenue. And now when GST was brought in, the state governments were guaranteed that a GST compensation, as I told you a couple of minutes before in the beginning of the class, the pillar of GST paradigm shift in our country, India's GST compensation for states. They said that if at all they're not able to attain 14% growth in their country's revenue through GST, then the central government will take care of them. But now a situation before the completion of 5 years, as per the promise by the central government, because of this COVID-19 pandemic, the state governments are put in that scenario. Now the big issue of GST compensation tax, GST compensation cess. What is cess? Cess means a tax on tax. For example, tax for one particular purpose, education tax, Swachh Bharat tax. You understand? So now only for that particular education purpose, the tax will be collected and that money will be utilized only for that. Even if you're not able to utilize that money for that particular purpose, what it is collected, you cannot use it for any other purpose, be it health or be it any infrastructure. The next year, you'll carry it forward for the same purpose, education. That is the beauty of cess. Clear? It's called as tax on tax. Fine? Now, why all these terms I'm telling you is because multiple things like this will come when you study this. Clear? So now look at the last point. Do you really think the central government was able to do justice to the state government as they promised through the GST Compensation Seska Act? And do you think the concept of fiscal federalism is applicable today, taking into consideration the current affairs scenario? No. So that is why it is said that GST is going in a way where it is an unfinished agenda. But we got to do something to prevent it. Don't you think so? Yes. The next one. What were the visible changes with the introduction of GST? There were some changes, guys. That is, you can never say that there were no changes. When GST was introduced, one important fact is that since input tax credit comes under the purview of GST. By the way, what is input tax credit? I have been telling input tax for a long time. What is input tax credit, all of you? I'll highlight the same for you as well. Hold on. What is input tax credit? Yes, quick. So now, let's quickly have a look into what is it all about. So I can see people with multiple answers. Yes, ma'am, please explain. Oh, Surendra is saying, please explain. Sure, I will do that. Don't worry. So now, input tax credit is nothing but, for example, at the time of paying tax on output. I repeat, at the time. Input credit means at the time of paying tax on output, you can reduce the tax which have already paid on inputs and pay the balance amount. For example, I want to manufacture cotton sarees. Okay. Now, while getting the cotton raw material to dye them, all the input process, the production cost, what I incur now, that will be there. So now when I'm actually paying a tax on output, I can reduce the tax that I've already paid while, getting the inputs, and I can pay the balance amount as a producer. Actually, this is benefiting the ones who are manufacturing. Previously, in the context of indirect tax, at every single stage of production, before the final goods, even in the middle or the intermediate stage of production, when there was a semi-finished product also, tax was keeping on and on adding. At the end of the day, the product becomes quite costly because every single point your tax has been added. You understand? But in GST, that cannot be the case. Clear? That is, when you buy a product or service from a registered dealer, you pay tax on the purchase or when you buy them. But on selling, you will start collecting the tax. Did you understand? For example, a trader, if you are a trader, you are purchasing goods worth rupees 100 and you pay a tax of 10%. Simple as that. That is the example of input tax credit. Did you understand? Now, this input tax credit comes under the purview of GST, goods and service tax. This is to be understood. Clear? That is the biggest benefit of GST, guys. Let me tell you. Under the purview that they have to be implemented in the proper manner. And now, since this the implementation, since this GST implementation is continuous chain of input tax credit from the manufacturer till the retailer, as in the previous system of credit of excise duty, it was not allowed at the time of sale of goods. Clear? I'm talking about the previous thing, but today it has become more convenient for the people, the manufacturers, because they have the so-called input tax credit. So this is one of the notable changes when GST was introduced. Don't you think so? It's indeed a good change to be observed. Yes. Now, before the implementation of the so-called GST, if you see in the pre-implementation period, some decentralized systems, I repeat, decentralized systems were used for credit mechanism process. But after the implementation, what happened? After post-implementation period, the so-called GST. Previously, decentralized was used, but then post-implementation, it has given rise to centralized system for availing the input tax credit from the manufacturer level to the retailer level. This is another important notable change that has taken place with regard to what? With regard to GDP. Clear? So now let me quickly tell you the mechanism of GST. That is, how does this GST regime works? From manufacturers, it goes to wholesalers, and from wholesalers, it goes to retailers. And from retailers, we the consumers purchase the commodity by paying the price, which consists of their profit plus the tax, the inclusive tax. Today we call them as GST. And that is how it works. So tell me quickly, guys, what is the architecture of a country India's GST? The architecture of our country, India's GST, believe me, it is built on the firm foundations of two things called as GST Council and GST Network. So now the two important new concepts coming under the architect of GST is GST Council and GST Network. What are they? So now GST Council means the council is put forward. So all the decisions pertaining to whether what type of tax has to be charged. Matlab under GST, what is the percentage to be put upon this commodity and commodity? It comes under what category? All the decisions are taken in that particular council. Whatever changes, whatever rules, whatever regulations, whatever improvements, whatever removal of tax under GST, whatever is supposed to be taken, all the decisions are taken in this council, and it has been chaired by the Union Finance Minister and the other finance ministers of the various state governments. Okay, they are the members. That is Nirmala Sitharan currently, the Union Finance Minister. She is the chairperson, and the finance ministers of every single state. Okay, they are the members. And what is GST network? See, this network is basically to have a better connection, and now this generates high frequency data. Keeping up all the data, calculation of all the data, or collection of all the data to understand how it has been progressing. That is what a GST network does. So this generates what? A high frequency data, and they are subject them to all the analyticals. So based on the GST network and data collection, analysis and all this stuff, they'll be able to take it forward for an effective policy making pertain to the GST perspective or the indirect tax perspective to make the country India's taxation more effective and transparent. Did you understand? These are the two important architectures of our country India's GST. Clear? Yes, Rishabh, GSTN was a non-governmental body, but now they were in the thought to make it a governmental body. See, GST, I'll tell you more about it. Hold on. Yes, Ritesh. Now, this GST and Goods and Service Tax Network now though they were in the thought of making it a governmental one also, let me tell you, there are so many flaws in this GST and due to which it has not been working properly. That is why the factor called GST, guys, it has become an unfinished agenda. Like it is in the process like that. Something that they took it for a great perspective. It's been 5 years and now a lot of complications because of the lack of proper implementation. The lack of proper execution has led to all this confusions and chaotic situations. Clear? Now let's quickly move into another important topic of discussion, the most important part which you should understand. So having understood the background of the GST, the benefits and other current affairs perspective, let's quickly have a look into what are the real issues with GST. So now as far as the state governments are concerned, what is the concern of these states, guys, with GST? See, GST was only and only conceivable in our country, India, because the state governments agreed. They said, okay, why are we going for GST? What is the benefit we are getting? That time only central government promised, no, listen, for a period of 5 years till from the date of implementation of GST, whatever loss you people face. If you're not able to earn an annual revenue of 14%, if it is something below than that, we will compensate you with GST compensation cess act. But they didn't do that. That is a different thing. And the pandemic has hit the economy harder and that was not possible. Even with the central government, a lot of jagadas came in. But then initially when GST was put forward, the central government convinced the state government by saying that this will benefit them like this. So now only because the state governments agreed to give up a larger portion of the constitutionally inherited indirect levies only, GST was practically adopted in our country, India, because every single state has to agree now. And second thing is, the next important concern of state with GST is that revenue neutrality is the pillar of GST. But given the lack of revenue neutrality and the slew of other challenges, many states are left with little choice but to rely only on GST compensation. But now, where is the compensation coming up? Are the central government giving them the required revenue that they are supposed to get? Because they are falling short of the revenue. So now, the state governments are at a stake. So now that is a very, very, very big concern or issue with regard to GST. Hai na? And thus, while compensation called as GST compensation must lawfully coexist with the GST, even the constitutionally stipulated 5-year compensation has not been given to them. The states have been continuously asking the central government, come on, you got to do this for us. But they said they are running short of revenue because of the pandemic situation. So what will these state governments do? So years back, 5 years before, when the state governments agreed, come on, we are going to adopt GDP, you give, GST, you give a promise. But now, how can the central government go, apart from the promises that they made? So is that not shaking the confidence of the state governments with regard to the revenue that they get or they generate from indirect taxes? You know why they're more worried? Because the kind of revenue what the state governments get from direct tax is less compared to indirect tax. Indirect tax gives you the highest amount of revenue because everybody, be it rich or poor, whoever is purchasing a commodity or utilizing a service has to pay tax. But direct tax is not, that is not the case. So due to which it became a big burden or a big, confusions for the state governments. You understand? And next is this GST. They also discriminate against manufacturing state. Why? Because it is highlighting the need or necessity for a revenue sharing model. For example, Tamil Nadu is a manufacturing state, or let's say Maharashtra is manufacturing. Now, GST talks about the necessity for revenue sharing, that is CGST and SGST, Central Goods and Service Tax, State Goods and Service Tax. And this model is such way that they properly incentivize the exporting states by dividing integrated goods and service tax money among the three parties rather than two. So now what happens again? Can you find the discrimination happening? So do you think GST is effective? That is what they are doing. The revenue sharing between the central and the state. But then what are they doing? That is, this particular model is properly incentivizing the exporting states because they are dividing the integrated goods and service tax among three parties instead of two parties. That's a very, very, very big issue or challenge. Hannah. And now what are the issues with IGST? That is the integrated goods and service tax. And by the way, what is an IGST, guys? As I told you, with regard to the inter-supply. That is interstate supply only, your IGST comes in. Clear? So let's quickly have a look into what is IGST as well for all of you to have a better understanding. So integrated goods and service tax. Okay. It is nothing but under GST, IGST will be levied on all the interstate supplies of goods and service and it will be governed by the IGST Act as well. Clear? That is the import of goods and service. They will be treated as the so-called, they'll coming under the IGST only, guys. That's how they kind of treat it. Clear? Any doubt in IGST, guys? Do you want an example how to understand the meaning of IGST properly? Yes, Manish. Do you want an example? Because see, instead of sharing it between two parties, you're doing it with three party. You understand? So that has to be understood. Yes, Mithun is saying did not understand. Okay, hold on. Let me quickly give you the example. For example, okay, integrated goods and service tax is basically levied on what? It is charged when the movement of goods and service happens from one state to another. It is basically on the interstate supply of goods. You charge something called as IGST. Let's say, for example, from Kerala to Tamil Nadu, the goods are moving, or from Tamil Nadu to Kerala, when the goods start moving, or when you transport the goods, automatically the factor called integrated goods and service tax happens. Okay. Now, for example, as I told you, from Tamil Nadu to Kerala, there is a movement of goods. Now, they will levy something called as integrated goods and service tax on such goods. And the revenue that they get from the integrated goods and service tax will be shared with the state government, the central government, as per the rates fixed by the authorities. Clear? As per the rates fixed by the authorities. Did you understand? This is what you should know with regard to IGST in simple terms. Clear? Yes, Manish. Ma'am, for the interstate purchasing, we pay IGST. But how it is divided for central and state and central? That's what I told you. IGST is like that. That is that revenue of IGST, whatever you get, as per the integrated goods and service tax, they share among the central and state governments. And that is as per the rates fixed by the concerned authorities also. That is something to be understood. I think the percentage is 18%, I believe. Goods which are not specified in table, which are not specified now, as per the certain items of list and all, who has below IGST tax rate of 18%, they don't come. That they have different percentages for that also. Clear? It is as per the IGST Act. It's a very big topic again. IGST itself is a very big topic. But you just need to know what is IGST, just for you to have an understanding. Clear? Yes, so 90% times examples will consist Kerala and Tamil Nadu. Nothing like that. It just comes out of me like that. So I use Kerala, Tamil Nadu. Don't worry. Next time I'll use West Bengal and Maharashtra or Uttar Pradesh. Okay, you don't worry. Is it very clear all of you what is IGST? Now, see, without knowing the meaning of a concept, when you keep using it again and again in the class, it doesn't make a sense. You will not be able to relate them with the current affairs of it. That is why I'm very, very careful in asking whether you know it. Let's do a revision. Let's do an example car analysis. So everything comes under one single umbrella. Your concept clearing plus the current affairs and stuff like that. Clear? Now, though the revenue sharing happens between the central and state as per the IGST also, there are so many issues with the integrated goods and service tax also. Why? Though IGST is a significant source of income for many states, the clearinghouse method and procedure remains unknown. Biggest kallatram ever. GST is brought in to make things more transparent, more efficient, more systematic. But what is happening? In IGST, look at the biggest kallatram out there. And there is a virtual information vacuum, guys, online information vacuum, particularly in the context of what? Integrated goods and service tax. And there are so many various flaws in the digital architecture. We talk about digitalization, we talk about online perspective, we talk about every other perspective. But then there is a gap, there is a digital divide or a gap out there. There are flaws in the so-called digital architecture out there, which has to be rectified. That's the biggest issue of IGST. Clear? This is a harsh reality to be understood. And thus, we have something called as tax network. What is GSTN, guys? Let's quickly have a look into what is GSTN. You can write it down. So, goods and service tax network is nothing but, it is what? It is a non-profit, as Rishabh told in the class. Yes, it is a non-profit, non-governmental organization. It will manage the entire IT system, information tax system of the goods and service tax. Did you understand? So basically, it is a private limited company incorporated in the year 2013, guys. See, GSTN was not there, or let's say GSTN was something which was not implemented in the year 2017. This company was there before. Before the introduction of GST itself, GSTN was there because they are a non-profit, non-governmental, private limited company incorporated in the year 2013, and the government of India holds 24.5%. You can write it. 24.5% of equity in the goods and service tax network. And if you see all the states, including the Union Territory of Delhi and Pondicherry and the empowered committee of the state finance ministers, together and all, they hold around 24.5%. That's why I said the government of India holds 25.5% of GSTN. Did you understand? And the remaining balance, 51% of equity, is with the non-governmental financial institutions and all. So what they do is, this particular goods and service tax network, this particular company, they provide all the important IT infrastructure and services to both the central and the state governments, the taxpayers, and also other tax holders. Why? Because for the effective implementation of the so-called indirect tax reform, that is goods and service tax. That is the main point out here. Clear? That is enough. But then, as Rishabh told in the class, there is another current affairs to be understood from GSTN. This NGO is now being taken. I repeat, this NGO is now being considered to make it as a governmental body. That is, I told you something called as GST Council, the one who take decisions with regard to whatever should happen in GST and all, right? So now, as per the recommendations, okay, as per the recommendations, GST Council, they approved and they said, chalo, let's approve the proposal to convert the GSTN network into a government entity from current private entity status. Because currently they're a private company, private entity. Let us make them a government entity. For that, they will do that by taking over stakes held by the private entities. They'll start taking over all the stakes. And why do you think such a kind of change should be brought in? Why did the GST Council said we will make the GST network to a government entity from a private entity? There should be a reason. Point number one. The reason is that majority of goods and service tax process, including your registrations, your filing of returns, your payment of tax, then the processing of refunds in the IT, all these are mainly done through GSTN. So now when it's a private entity, corruptions and kallatram is on the rise. But when it becomes a government entity, at least to an extent they can reduce their telling. And thus, for the above said purpose, the goods and service tax network handles large-scale invoice level data. of lakhs and lakhs of business entities, guys, including data dealing or relating to what exports and import. So taking into consideration the nature of state function performed by the Goods and Service Tax Network, it was felt that the so-called GSTN, that is GST card network, should be converted into a fully government-owned company for the betterment of our country, India, in the indirect tax regime. Did you understand? And that is basically to support the Goods and Service Tax Network without much of corruptions and stuffs like that. This is a real reason why GSTN was discussed. The proposal was accepted by the GSTN Council to make it a government entity. Did you understand the history and background of GSTN? You should. Only then you will be able to understand this point, which is called as GSTN is now in a slump. If you understand this concept and the reason why it has been put forward, you will be able to make it out from this point. Yes, GSTN is now a slump. What is slump, guys? It's not slum. It's slump. S-L-U-M-P. What is meaning of slump? Something that is falling, Hannah. A sudden, severe or prolonged fall in the price. That's called a slump basically. That is something is falling. We say in a slump in profits, a fall in the profit. Similarly, GST is now in slump means it has dropped heavily. It is on the negative perspective, the negative side. Clear? Perfect. So now the Goods and Service Tax Network, under the issues of GST, though these things were done also, now it is in a big slump or a fall, I can say, because they are supposed to make the efficient use of vast amount of useful data, but they do not even make use of that vast amount of useful data which has been created. Nor this network, GST network, share it to the others who might use it. So then why do you think you should have such kind of network again? क्या क्या फायदा है यार, कुछ नहीं है ना. And now you can see a monopoly. What monopoly? Single man control of power, because it was a private entity. Now they will show the qualities and features of that also. So such data monopoly behavior was a matter of history in India's statistics system, and this must be eliminated very, very sooner rather than later. Otherwise, it will be a very big issue, because GST has data of lakhs and lakhs of business, guys, including export, import and all. So this monopoly has to be decreased, because with that they can earn better. With that they can do high level corruption to a greater extent. And that will be the biggest failure for what? The GST. Or let's say that could be a biggest reason why this GST is still an unfinished agenda. Though we are doing multiple things in order to benefit the country, GST was brought in, but still all these factors, all these worm factors will literally prove, yes, it is an unfinished agenda. Clear? Because that shouldn't be the case. That is why we are trying to improve it. Hai na? Now, apart from that, the other issue. Now, in the advantage of GST, when I taught you the benefits of GST, what did I tell you? I told you that it was basically to improve the tax to GDP ratios. But now, where is that tax to GDP ratio? It is very lower, because the tax base has narrowed. And the promise of revenue neutrality, it remains a fantasy. What revenue neutrality? Kuch nahi. They're not attaining any revenue neutrality for the entire state. Some states are still doing good. Some are very poor. Some states don't even get a revenue. And now when the compensation is supposed to come from the government, called as GST compensation, says nothing is happening. So now several states have even seen their tax GDP ratio falling drastically. Next is, according to a study, if you see the ratio of the own tax income GDP, it decreased not in 1 or 2 states, rather 18 states, 18 wala states it reduced. So this is a very, very big issue. Don't you think so? So now it's not because GST is not good. The policies or the lack of proper implementations, or like failing to keep up their word to what they said exactly, is the reason why this is happening. Clear? And thus, there are so many significant and notable disparities, I can tell you, my young officers, in revenue neutral rates, called as R&R, between the producing and the consumer states. Take the example of Kerala, Tamil Nadu, or West Bengal, Maharashtra. One is producing, one is selling. So the place of production, place of consumption. So now there are a lot of disparities in the so-called revenue neutral rates also. Now these difficulties are actually expressed, or let's say exaggerated, by a widespread evasion, where they started following the removal of all the important checkpoints, because goods has to get transported. Then the proliferation of bogus invoices, showing it of too much, a big amount. That is, if the amount is big, they'll show it less. If the amount is less, they'll show it big. Multiple things like that. And that has increased by leaps and bounds. And now GST, for making it more transparent, being brought in. But you see, Kallatram is on the rise, or let's say the corruption is on the rise. People are finding ways and means to evade it illegally and legally in every single way. So evasion and avoidance of tax in indirect context is also happening. That's a very, very, very big issue with regard to GST. Clear? Thus, exemptions and subventions that exacerbated and aggravated the issue, I can tell you. So thus, take into consideration all these things. In spite of the fact that two expert panels, they recommended a bigger allocation of the revenue for the states. This GST was even split evenly between the central and the state government. And that's how it is called as CGST and SGST, Central GST and State Ka GST. But then, did we achieve revenue neutrality? I told you, revenue neutrality and GST compensation ka act. They are the two important pillars of GST. The entire GST is based on that when they were implemented in the year 2017. But both these factors are not accomplished. Then when the pillar has not been accomplished, the main objective has not been accomplished, it is still in a policy. How can you even think about GST to be a successful stuff? That becomes a very big question mark. Hai. That's what we are seeing here. Now, the revenue neutrality, did we achieve them? Definitely no. And the two key pillars of India's GST is revenue neutrality and GST compensation for state. And this assured revenue neutrality now, it still remains a mirage or a dream for so many states, I can tell you. And so many states, around 18 states have been experiencing a declining in their tax to GDP ratio. Clear? So yes, who is that? Who's asking what is what's the person? PK. Okay, PK is asking what is exaggerated. So exaggerated is a it's a new word. So I can add this to vocabulary. So exaggerate means like you're kind of making a situation bad. So or making it worse, or let's say something which is negative. The for you will say now the exorbitant cost of land in urban areas only exacerbated the problem. Aggravating the issue, making it very bad. That's the meaning of exacerbate. If you have some allergy or something, you say, come on, it's exacerbating for me. Means it is aggravating for me. Similarly, here what is happening? This exemptions and subventions GST is exacerbating, aggravating, or let's say it's making the situation more and more worse with regard to GST. Did you understand? All of you? Perfect. So thus, this is a scenario, guys. And now, I told you 18 states, you can see a direct decline in the tax GDP ratio of them. Okay. And now, in the case of all these major 18 states where the tax to GDP ratio has declined, while the share of the center in the total GST increased. You look at this, guys. The state share from the GST has decreased drastically. And that too in the COVID-19 pandemic, oh my goodness, it became even more diverse. And the central government is supposed to, provide them with the necessary compensation as per the GST Compensation Cess Act. Because from the date of implementation to 5 years of GST, they're supposed to do it, but nothing was done. So now when the state is having such kind of decline, we think that the central government is not having money. That is why this is happening. But look at the tragedy here. Look at the irony here. When the state is having such kind of issues, the central government share in total GST is just increasing, and that too not by 1 or 2%, by 6%. That of states put together lag behind with only a 4.5 increase. So look at the statement. This itself tells you what the reality is. This statistical figure or data tells you what the reality is. Don't you think so? Yes, it makes you think even. And thus, the stark differences that we have between the revenue neutrality rates, be it for the producing states and for consumption state, that has been observed for a very long time. There are so many states producing, for example, some states producing exempted food grains are also lost out now. Clear? And since all these rates were quite lower under the GST via the VAT regime, okay, value-added tax regime, this factor called as revenue neutrality that was not even added into it. And I hope all of you know what is revenue neutrality. What is revenue neutrality, guys? What is revenue neutrality? Please, those who do not know, please write it, because I don't want you guys, to just go with the flow like that. Please write it. Revenue neutral rates, RNR, okay, or revenue neutrality. What are they? It is nothing but the rate of tax. I repeat, the rate of tax which allows the government to receive the same amount of money despite changes in the tax law. See, no matter whatever changes you bring in the GST tax law, the state government is supposed to receive, let's say, 15% of that particular income, or let's say they're supposed to get 1 lakh, means they should get 1 lakh. For example, whatever change, increase or decrease, that is not their concern. So revenue neutrality is the meaning of that. Clear? So here R is equal to revenue for both the central and state government, which has been generated from the existing sales of sales and excess taxes, which will be replaced with GST again. Did you understand? Revenue neutral. Clear? That is whatever amount of revenue that comes to the government, guys. No matter you change the tax, you don't change the tax, that is none of our concern. It should be the same. Such kind of attitude the revenue neutrality structure is having. But do you think, as far as GST is concerned, did the state government really receive that? The revenue neutrality? No. In fact, they're falling drastically. The income is drastically falling. And at the same time, tax to GDP ratio is also drastically declining. Clear? So all this is making you think, because this GST itself is revolving around two pillars of neutrality and also GST compensation. But when that itself is breaking, then you can understand. When the head itself is breaking, there is no point of talking about the tail or the legs out there, right? That is the scenario here. And thus, all these problems, they were compounded with what? The massive invasion, following dismantling of check posts, then later giving all the fake Kalatramala invoices, and that is keeping on increasing just like that. Clear? And now, do you really think we said that GST is for the fiscal federalism perspective under the benefits? But under the challenge, I will say you that they are not conducive to cooperative federalism, because the states collectively forward, let's say 51.8% of the total tax revenue, and but the sender, they surrendered just 28.8%. Where is equality? It is said that GST is shared equally between the center and the state, despite the two expert committees recommended for a higher share of the states because of the conditions of the state government. But still, you can see what was the collective forement of the states from the total tax revenue is more than the majority, 51.8%, and for center just 28.8%. This itself shows the kind of partiality, or let's say the kind of inequality out there. So the concept called federalism doesn't apply there. And taking into consideration the revenue neutrality failure and a lot of other issues of GST, guys, many of the states are left with no option except for the fact that they have to solely depend upon the compensation of GST, because they have changed from the indirect tax system to GST now. And now they have to depend upon GST compensation, which is the central government is not giving them. They're saying they don't have money. And now, taking into consideration all these things, don't you think this is not conducive to sustainable cooperative federalism? No. That is the reality. So this particular statement has been proved with the above statements. Clear? And now, having understood Indian scenario, do you really think only for a country India this is happening? See, not only a country India, guys, many other countries have adopted GST. Okay? So now, do you know which was the very first country to adopt GST for the first time, guys? Which is the first country to have a GST? GST is not a joke. It's not a new thing. Since 1954 and all, you have it. Which country, guys? Quickly give the right answer. Let me see how your brain works. The question is, which country was the first country to implement GST? Brilliant, Tanuja. Yes, very good. It is France. If you see in the year 1954, France was the very first country to implement goods and service tax, guys. Since then, if you see, including a country, India, 160 countries. I repeat, more than 150 here, approximately 160 countries have adopted this tax system in some or the other form. Even our country, India, is a part of it. Clear? And initially, when they were introduced, guys, in more than 140 countries, it was said they were implemented. But now, an extra 20 countries have also come. That's why I said in some or the other form, it has come in. In some textbooks, in some sites, you can see there's more than 140 countries. But as per the updated data, again, another 20 countries in some or the other way, it has, been brought in. Clear? Now, let's quickly have a look into the global perspective, guys, of this GST. Because it's always important to have a comparison globally. Just by telling India like this, we should know what the other countries have achieved. Is it a failure or a success for them? If that is the case, then why happening to a country, India? So you will get answers for your questions in a very simplified manner. Now, in the context of South Africa, if you talk about the GST, guys, yeah, the South African experience illustrates or shows how zero rating and large exemptions have defeated the revenue goals. As far as South Africa is concerned, this is the experience that they had. What about Canada, guys? Taking into consideration the 30 years of Canadian experience with the so-called GST, it's not a joke. See, for India, it's just 5 years. But Canada, it's 30 solid years that they have GST, guys. They say that GST could be improved by limiting zero rating, tax exemptions, and harmonizing tax rate. So for 30 years, they're having it because, see, everything has a flaw, but doesn't mean that like how it is causing trouble for a country, India, it is causing trouble for Canada or let's say South Africa. No, it is manageable. Just that what they're saying is that you can actually improve GST in a much, much better way, because more than 3 decades they are having the so-called GST, the Canada. Okay. So you can do that by tax exemptions, by zero rating, by having some harmony in the tax rate, so that all the people will come under the tax regime, sab kuch like that. Clear? What about Brazil? Yeah, Brazil is saying that as per the experience they have with tax, the GST, goods and service tax, transfers through social security called as transfer payments or unilateral transfers, the payment made by the government without expecting any benefits or returns directly. Subsidies, scholarship, unemployment benefit, sickness benefit, all these things are examples of transfer payments. So now they say that through social security subsidies tend to be more progressive than subventions or exemptions. So this is the experience of Brazil, guys. So thus, what did you understand from this? The whole point is GST should be viewed as a revenue generator and a fiscal or a tax policy instrument to attain more efficiency, more transparency, more competitiveness and growth. The whole point is, it is highly even today debatable whether such undertakings as broadening exemptions and replacing even the income tax, I repeat, income tax comes under the direct tax regime. So now taking such, whether it is also debatable that whether such undertakings as broadening exemptions and replacing the direct tax called as income tax with GST in the case of small and medium firms are appropriate approaches in the so-called Indian environment of taxation. Do you really think? This puts a lot of questions into your brain. Having understood the issue of GST, guys, this has to be really thought about. Clear? So that's all, my young officers. We're done for the day. Thank you so much. I hope you had a brilliant session on GST. Now you got to tell me, do you really think GST is it an unfinished agenda? Yes or no? The choice is yours. I told you the conclusion as well. So now the choice is yours. Or do you think it is not an unfinished agenda? It is, and we got to do a lot more. What is that? Attain revenue neutrality. Point number 2. GST compensation cess have to be effectively implemented because the state governments are at a huge loss as far as country India is concerned. You got the point. So now we can never say they are a completely undefined agenda. Yeah, it is an unfinished agenda. That is true. A lot more has to be triggered. If you see the examples of South Africa, Brazil, Canada and all, yeah, they have been adopting for a long time. If that is possible, why not a country India? But the focus, or let's say the transfer, should be in such a way that it is hitting the bar in the proper manner. So this is a very, very controversial topic, guys, since day one. And now that, this has become too much in the context of so-called GST Compensation Act and stuff like that, it has become a very big question mark. So I want each and every one to literally put your viewpoints in the comment box once that live streaming is over. So don't forget to like the video, do share it among your friends. And now at 6 p.m. in the evening today, I will see you with the most important, UPSC level MCQs, guys. Use the code Nisha IAS Live and do come for this class by downloading the app. Clear? And now those who have missed the previous classes, around 8, including today, 8 classes have been done. The playlist of this particular series is given. Current topics in news. So if you see, every single day we do different topics. So we started Monday with economy, monetary policy report last Monday, Jan 10th. Then we had a topic from social justice, raising legal age of marriage women, a need or a curse. And guys, let me tell you something. I'm so happy to tell you that this video is getting viral, the second video. I'll put the poster tomorrow for you all. And I will, or in the 6 p.m. class today, I'll put the poster. It has crossed 1 lakh views here. Come on, that's brilliant, Hannah. So thank you so much for all the support, motivations and belief that you had in my lectures. And I received, in spite of pros and cons discussion, I received positive praise from the people who are even against the topic, like kind of no need of 21 years, it should be 18 because both the dimensions we covered. So that is there. Then another discussion based on digital public good, an inevitable, attribute to the future. Then from science and tech, we discussed blockchain technology beyond cryptocurrencies to a new dimension to transform education sector. Is it a need or a necessity? It's a necessity, we understood. Then carbon neutrality, the target of net zero emissions. Is India in the right path with regard to environment? Because that is very important. And then next, India's income inequality, the cold truth. Do you agree? That was a very wonderful discussion. And yesterday, from international relations, we had a topic called as India-Australia 2+2 ministerial dialogue. Now, this is not just the highlights of India-Australia, but rather is this the rise or fall of Quad partnership, because India-Australia is a part of Quad members. So in multiple dimensions, we are taking one particular topic. The current affairs could be one, but then the multiple dimensions and the critical thinking and the analytical thinking of view is improving there. And today, GST. It's not just a normal GST, because normal GST classes, you know, how does it go? What is GST? What is that? What are some of the issues? That's it. But now we were trying to find an answer to a very, very controversial topic, that is it an unfinished agenda? So now you have to fill it up after understanding the whole thing right from the scratch to the advanced level, including the benefits, issues, way forward, and other perspectives out there. Did you understand? So yes, so you can watch all these sessions, guys. The playlist is already there, so nothing to worry. Clear? So thank you so much, my young officers. I hope you had a great time with me today morning, Monday morning. So we started last Monday with economies or topic MP Monte Policy report, and today, this Monday also, we are starting with an economy topic only, GST. So this will be maintained. Different subjects will be done. Every single day. There will be no repetition. So current topics and news consist of every single subject. So equal weightage has been given to every single subject, or let's say important hit list topics in news in this particular series. So when the clock strikes 6 a.m., come for this. It's worth attending this live than the recorded version. So early bird catches the worm. So it's okay for you to wake up in the morning and come. Clear? Yes, Soham, ma'am, the very first day you made that video, I told it will be the biggest hit. Yes, Soham, yes, I do know that. Thank you for that, my student. Yes, Surender, PK, Rishav. Yes, Wilfish, I'll see you in the evening. Bye. Yes, Rishav, I'll ask a question. Ma'am, why are we not adding petrol into GST slab? The basic necessity or the stuff. Matlab, it has been utilized by everyone. It's a fuel. That is also there. But the price of petrol is shooting up like anything. So do you want it to come into GST and make it more and more costly? Like 1 liter cost in Tamil Nadu 101, in Kerala 110, in Rajasthan it was 122 also per liter. I'm talking. So some last month. Now this month also same thing, more than 100 it is 1 liter. Too costly it is, right? Inflation is on the rise for that. See, why the center and state does not want to have petrol and diesel under GST is tax on fuel has been a major source of revenue for the central and state government. This is a key reason that they don't want to bring it under the so-called regime of GST. Clear? Because if you do that, it will burden the consumers. It will be a big reprieve to consumers who are feeling high fuel prices. So, though that is the case, also what is happening? Now the petrol is costing more than 100 in every single place. So, it doesn't make a sense at all. Clear? And they're importing mostly here, and already the price is high. So, then there is no point of including them, much. Is it clear, Rishabh? Not only this petrol, your natural gas, your diesel, your crude oil, then aviation turbine fuel, aviation turbine fuel for the flights you use. All these are out of GST umbrella. This is as per September 2021 current affairs data. There was an article on that. I did also, editorial analysis on the same. You can just go through that. Clear? And now, for example, okay, there was a news that what if GST on petrol? What if petrol comes in a GST? That's an article in Times of India in September 2021. An article was there. It was a very controversial one. That's just they said that if petrol is coming under the GST regime now, it will be most likely be a maximum of, let's say, 28%, which is too costly or very costly. It will be up to 28%. This is not a joke. Clear? And that will cause a lot of trouble for the normal consumers and people as a whole. Is it fine? Are you clear with your doubt? Perfect. So have a great Monday. Keep the Monday morning codes in your brains. What is Monday morning code that I've told you? Once again showing you. This is your Monday morning reminder that you're powerful beyond measure, that you're capable of pretty much anything you're willing to work for, and that you could change your life today. Start your day fresh. Start where you are. Use what you have and do your best, because the world is yours as long as you want to cherish it with whatever you want. So make sure you're utilizing it in the best possible manner. Clear? So that's a great morning. See you all at 6 p.m. today. Till then, bye-bye. Thank you. Take care and Jai Hind. And one important thing, don't forget tomorrow again 6 a.m. Don't be lazy. Do come for the class. Take care. Thank you and Jai Hind.